May I please have your full and undivided attention? It is time for the Paranormal Rundown. Hello, this is Cedric Dankworth-Smythe. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome all fans of the paranormal, the supernatural, the unusual, the entertaining, the terrifying, the horrifying, and those things that go bump in the night and in the daytime too. This is the one and only Paranormal Rundown, where the lads, the gang of nerds, choose from over 2,700 carefully curated paranormal topics. Tonight, the newly expanded gang of nerds joins forces with Samuel Chong, attorney, translator, deep thinker, to cover the Thaioouba Prophecy, deeper than you ever thought you'd ever hear that particular topic covered. Let's get going, and let's find our own 9th level planet. It's a moral imperative, you know. Just keep that in mind. Moral imperative.
Hello, everybody. This is Vic Hermanson. I am the founder of the Paranormal Rundown, and I have here with me the Paranormal Rundown team, along with a new guest, whom I believe you will find exceedingly interesting, named Samuel Chong. The Paranormal Rundown is myself, Vic Hermanson. It is Dave Griffith. When he is able to be here, it is Father Michael Birdsong and his son, Father Josh Birdsong. And the newest member of the Paranormal Rundown team, introducing, from California, Randy Cantrell. Our guest this evening is Samuel Chong. He is a multiple-faceted individual. I believe currently he's an attorney in California. And I would like for Samuel to tell us a little bit about himself, if he is willing to do so.
Yes, I'm Samuel Chong. I was born in Beijing, China, back in 1978. I went to UC Berkeley and learned economics. Went to London School of Economics and learned economics history, and studied in Spain and had a master's degree in financial analysis. And before I became attorney, I was a certified court interpreter, working with the professionals, doctors and lawyers. So I have a very logical mind, but also I have a fascination about the paranormal and the things that people always wonder about, the mysteries in the world. So my curiosity led me to the book Thaioouba Prophecy, which I think I'm going to discuss and talk about that.
Samuel, is it more difficult to go to Berkeley or to the London School of Economics?
I think Berkeley is actually a little bit more challenging, because for London, at that time, LSE, it was fairly easy to get into.
Okay, well, me and, my mind, I look at both of those as magical places. So, anyway, okay, well, let's go ahead and pull a list. And once again, I want to thank Samuel for being willing to be here and to go through the Paranormal Rundown routine. Okay, so we have about 2,800 possible topics that we can pull from. Of course, we'll talk about all of them tonight. But but what we need to do is pull up good lists, and I do that through a random number generator. And here we go. Topic 1 is Bigfoot habituation, human bonding with Bigfoot creatures. Number 2 is the toxic lady. Number 3 is something that, please don't get offended, but it is part of the paranormal world. Scatomancy or copromancy, which is divination through the examination of feces. Topic 4 is scientism. Is this a legitimate concept? One will often hear this word talking about science as being a type of religion. Topic 5 is Abe, the child demon detector. And that's from a previous interview that we had with a man named Abe, who, when he was a child, was employed by a Mexican bruja, bruja, to detect demons in her home while she was doing her bruja activity. And topic 6 is the happiness machine, which is a concept that Ray Bradbury came up with.
Isn't that called a coffee maker? Things that make me happy. What do you think, Samuel? What sounds interesting to you?
Well, let's talk about Bigfoot.
Let's talk about Bigfoot.
Excellent.
So
relationships with Bigfoot specifically, right, Vic? That was...
Yeah, one will occasionally hear a story about a kind little woman who lives out in, I don't know, let's say the forest north of Sacramento. and she's lived out in this little piece of land forever, and for years and years and years, there have been Bigfoot creatures coming to her home. And she feeds them apple pie, and she, has made a relationship with them. Or in some cases, these Bigfoot have just moved into her home. And they've formed more or less a family. And of course, they will come on TV occasionally, and they'll discuss this as if it's very real and they're very sincere. And then the world will attack them as being crazy.
As the world tends to do.
As the world tends to do. And I always give them great credit for being willing to talk about what they may or may not have experienced, because there is definitely ridicule involved in that.
Did she say anything about where the Bigfoot come from?
Well, no. In fact, most of the time, the Bigfoot that they're talking about don't seem to be capable of human speech and communication. It's more of a... There are two things they talk about. One, we communicate through signals, symbols, learning to know each other, that kind of thing, or telepathic communications, which are often not word-based, but just often image-based.
Impressions, right?
Impressions. So, have you guys ever heard of these type of people? And there are people also who set aside part of their property as a place of gifting, as a place of making the Bigfoot comfortable in being there in that home, in that area.
Yeah, that's real common.
You'll hear that. And then I've heard good things and bad things. Is that A, yes, they can form these relationships with the Bigfoot, and B, that they... it's very dangerous if you start feeding a Bigfoot to stop.
That's kind of how a lot of the gifting stuff goes. If you decide to gift, whether it's Bigfoot or the Fae or whatever thing you are gifting out in the woods that is paranormal or something paranormal adjacent, as soon as you stop the pattern that you've started, there seems to be issues.
Right.
Samuel, go ahead.
It's kind of interesting because in China, there's also Bigfoot in the snow mountains areas. And in people in China, they just saw them from far away places, and they really didn't have close encounters or interactions with Bigfoot. They call that Snowman. And it's very interesting that Bigfoot or American Sasquatch, they come to different places or different parts of the world, and especially in mountain areas. I find that to be very interesting. I think it's very good to have closer interactions with them if they're not hostile to the locals, and I'd like to learn more about the stories of their interactions with Bigfoot.
Is there a creature in China that they call the Alma? Is that a word they use to, or have I got the wrong part of the world?
I have not heard of the word Alma, but we call that Snowman.
Snowman, yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Well, I know that's actually been a legend or a story that's circulated around China for many, many, many years. In the Soviet Union, in the old part of Russia, there was one instance where villagers captured a creature that they were considering to be a Bigfoot Neanderthal type thing. Her name was Zana. She was kind of incorporated into the community, treated very poorly. It turned out that she was simply a sub-Saharan African person, she had a child with the villagers there, and they've been able to examine his DNA. Dave, have you guys heard about this?
No. I was curious though, in China, you're talking about them being in the mountains. One of the things that I've seen a lot on here in the US is it's potentially about food supply. So where there's large deer populations or salmon populations, something for them to eat, you see them more in those areas. So it's a combination of food supply and then the ability to stay more concealed, whether it's cave systems or, deep forest, what have you. In the mountains in China, what would they subsist on? What are, you have like a mountain goat type population they would survive on, or?
There are different kinds of animals. They actually observe the Bigfoot or Snowman in the snowy mountains areas. So it's really not well researched what kind of things they eat. And I would assume that they can survive in those kind of areas in which I think there are monkeys or wild animals that I don't know what kind of wild animals in that part of the area in China, because it's really remote. It's near the Tibet and the Sichuan province, in between the Tibetan mountains, just before you go up, and those parts are where the Bigfoot were observed. But recently, I think David Paulides is releasing a new film called The American Sasquatch. And I think one area that struck me to be very interesting is that they seem to come out of our world, come in and go out of our world, like through portals. Like there are some people who observe that when they leave our world, there's like a round portal that opened, and then they went into the portal and they disappeared. So it seems that they're able to travel, or they seem to be interdimensional beings that can come in and go out of our universe and get into like a parallel universe. And actually, this is described in the book Thaioouba Prophecy, what is really inside of a parallel universe, in which time stops, and then people, once they're in, they can see people who are stuck there, people who used to live in the medieval times, and people who behaved like savages.
How did they become part of this parallel universe?
Well, they get sucked into the parallel universe through the portals. I mean, for people here on Earth, they kind of don't realize that this is like a natural phenomenon. There are portals at different locations in the atmosphere or in space that they move around. They don't just stay in one location. They're just like ribbons that they kind of move around, and people nearby the portals get stuck into the portals. This is a very famous story, like in the Bermuda Triangle, in which ships and planes disappear or vanish just suddenly, and then they reappear at a different location or time, because time stops once you get into the parallel universe. And I think the Bigfoot or American Sasquatch, they know how to get inside and come out, and this is something that people will find out in the future.
So
it's interesting. Go ahead, Randy. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I'm familiar, and I believe David might be familiar with this as well, of at least one group of Sasquatch experiencer, habituator type people who have a spot where they consistently camp up on the Mogollon Rim in Arizona. And they've talked about portals and all these things as well. I would, and I can talk about that if you guys are curious about that, but I'm also curious if there's any like famous stories in China about stuff like this that we might not know here in the US.
Yes, there are a lot of stories in China, like legends about people who appear or disappear, and also about different kinds of animals, strange animals. I was fascinated about those stories in the past, but not anymore, because I think there are more important things to worry about facing us nowadays, especially towards something that's more urgent to the future of humanity. But to the other issue is that like I think David Paulides does a great job in kind of leading people into this paranormal phenomenon, kind of getting people interested, because like I work as a survey court interpreter in the past and also now a lawyer. A lot of people in the professional world, they don't realize that there are paranormals around. They just worry about their day-to-day livings and making some money for their family and themselves. They're kind of restrained in this materialistic world, which is also constrained in scientism, in which is the other topic. I think when you realize that there are things out there and there's reincarnation or ghosts or some kind of things that people don't normally accept in the mainstream scientific community, I think sooner or later they're going to want to explore some of the things that we talk about.
Well, Samuel, I can look. I'm not a Bigfoot expert. I'm not a Bigfoot. I have knowledge of Bigfoot from what I've read and from an experience that I had in Australia. And what I saw in Australia really doesn't qualify as being a Bigfoot compared to the United States Bigfoot. But I came away from seeing what I saw in Australia believing that this was an entirely natural creature, probably very rare, but that had evolved in such a way that it had characteristics and traits and abilities that just about no other animal has. And the David Paulides part of this is that it chose not to kill me.
Which it could have done, right?
Oh, with zero effort. Yes, I mean, it chose not to kill me. Now, I waited about 20 years before I talked to anybody about this, except for, very, very few people. And I would just always get the kind of, yeah, that's a great story, Vic. Thanks. Appreciate that. Which is the polite way of saying, hey, you're either nuts or you're a liar. Please go away. That is one of the things that started to make me tremendously interested in the paranormal side of the world. I mean, I'm not an attorney, but I am, kind of a scientist. I'm an architect. I'm someone pretty deeply steeped in math. Most people along those lines don't spend a lot of time worrying about the paranormal world. What was it that caused you to feel that this was worth your time and effort and mental energy?
For me personally, I always wanted to find out the unknown. It's mostly driven by my curiosity. In China, back in the 1980s, there was a magazine called the UFO magazine, exploring the UFO phenomena. There was a story, a very interesting story, talking about an engineer or a scientist who was taken by the ETs to their spacecraft. And then he was told that even though Einstein laid the 3 fundamental principles of modern physics, he made a small mistake. So that's the reason we cannot go faster than the speed of light. I was thinking if the ETs can come and visit us, they must have advanced technologies and knowledge. So they should be able to resolve or answer all the questions about the paranormal and then help us to progress at a much faster pace. And we can just learn from them to, for example, cut the corners and to really jump ahead and to learn about the things that they know about. So that's deep in my subconscious mind. So I was always looking for books written by ET contactees, hoping that the ETs could come and help us and to really lead our way towards a better future with better technologies. So that's the curiosity that I had when I was young. But then after I came to the US and I read so many books supposedly written by ET contactees, I was mostly disappointed because most of the books contained vague messages. Those messages are good, but there's no way for us to verify and to prove that what the ET told us was true. Except for this one, Thaioouba Prophecy. There are so many specific verifiable facts contained in the book that I was able to verify. And that's actually the book that explains the a lot of the paranormal phenomena, such as the parallel universe, the disappearances of people in the national parks in the US and Canada, and also the Bermuda Triangle, as well as kind of convey the idea of what the Bigfoot are, like, because the author really went inside of the parallel universe and saw people who behaved like cavemen, like Bigfoot.
I have two questions. Well, three questions. First, he didn't happen to give the correction to Einstein's formula, did he?
No, he did not. No.
Darn it. But the
Well, wait.
You
Can
said
can I expand on that a little bit? Was he talking about a mistake that Einstein made that was simply a lack of completion in his studies, where eventually he might have corrected this mistake, or is he talking about something that Einstein totally missed?
Like a completion. It's not something that he missed. It's something that can really kind of complement his theory.
Okay.
to build on it.
To build on it. Yeah.
Okay, so my second question is, you said you were disappointed in the abductee stories in the U.S. because of lack of detail. Are you saying that the stories you heard in China, the majority of them were much more detailed, or they had less detail as well?
Well, a lot of the stories in China lack details too,
Okay.
because they really don't say much about the paranormal, the answers to some of the things I was wondering about. But this book, Thaioouba Prophecy, is different. It's actually written by the French Australian landscaper Michel Desmarquet, who did
Desmarquet.
not have a lot of college education. And he never went to school and didn't know how to use technology. He did not know how to type or use the internet, but he wrote so much.
Yeah, that was one of the more interesting things that you were talking about, going to the island where he lives in Vietnam, or lived at the time in Vietnam, and that he wasn't terribly happy to see you initially, and part of he had not been able to type, which I just found that very interesting.
Right. He wasn't really pleased to see me because I went after him for the book. I wanted to know what else he knew but couldn't write in the book. He was annoyed.
Well, maybe this is a good time to give a little bit more background on the book, and we'll get into that.
Yeah, so the book was actually written or finished writing in 1989. That talks about his encounter in 1987, in which he was lifted up in the middle of the air, and after he woke up in the middle of the night, and then he encountered like a beautiful, tall ET who told him that they were going to have a trip together to their planet for 9 days and then came back. And then he did go with them, and then he learned a lot about the things that happened on Earth, including where we all came from originally, and who built the Great Pyramid of Egypt, what happens when people die, and the different reincarnations that people have, the meaning of life, and of course what I mentioned about the Bermuda Triangle, and the technologies that they have, and also the real dangers on Earth, such as money, politicians, journalists, and drugs, and religions. And they also talked about how religions came about, like the stories in the Bible, explaining what really happened during the times of the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, Exodus, when Moses led the Hebrews out of Egypt, and the times of Jesus and Christ. And also during World War II, how they intervened so that the Americans got the lead, deploying the two bombs in nuclear bombs in Japan. And the book actually has a lot of details that can be verified, especially when I read a portion on the tomb of Jesus in Japan. And remember, the book was published in 1993. He finished writing in 1989 and got it published in 1993, way before internet went to Australia. He lived in Cairns, Queensland, Australia. And he never traveled to Japan, but he described in the book specific, very specifically how the tomb of Jesus came about in Japan. I mean, I'm Chinese. I know Chinese sometimes fix things once in a while. So the Indians do too. But Japanese, they're really honest.
And Americans don't.
Right. No, never.
So Americans, like, I mean, Americans are, but Japanese people, they don't. I mean, they don't have incentive to make up a bomb, like a tomb in Japan, for Jesus. There's just no way for them to do that. I mean, it's just unthinkable. But there is a tomb of Jesus in Japan. That really struck me because I did research and I verified the information contained in the book. That actually is a turning point, making me believe that the book is for real. Because when I read the book, in the very beginning, I thought it's a science fiction. It could be true. It could be like a fake story or made up by someone. But there are just so many things that can be verified. And that's actually the book serving as warnings to people on Earth, telling us that we should pay more attention to our spiritual development and not to be really delved onto the materialistic world.
May I ask you, does he ever talk about what it was about him that caused him to be chosen to be taken on this trip and given this knowledge?
Yeah, there are like a few reasons. One reason was that he didn't have a lot of education or preconceived notions.
Okay.
If they took like a physicist, then the physicist would figure out their technology and destroy mankind on Earth. Because the technologies are really, really dangerous, and we are not spiritually enough to behave in a civilized manner. And so they took him, who didn't have a lot of education, and he would faithfully write what he observed and heard and saw. This is one reason. The other reason is he was a man of action. He passed away in 2018, but he was a man of action. So he took immediate action on everything that he felt the need to. So he wrote a book immediately after he came back. And the third reason is actually the most important reason, is that he had 80 past lives already. So he was at the turning point of moving up to a different kind of level in his reincarnation journey. So he was able to survive for 9 days on their planet. A person who probably just had 12 reincarnations would probably only survive for 1.5 days on their planet. So in order to take advantage of the time, so they selected him to stay with them for 9 days.
Okay. I'm sorry, I've got to ask questions about that. I understand the idea of many, many past lives, but for the novices, those who only have a few or very few, what is it that is dangerous, physically dangerous, about being among those people or on that planet?
There are two things that are really different on their planet, Thaioouba, which the author would call the golden planet, because as he approached the planet, he saw like a golden mist surrounding it. So he calls it the golden planet. One thing that's different from Earth is the gravity. The gravity on the golden planet Thaioouba is much lighter than that's on Earth. So Michel, the author, had to be very careful when moving around. And the second thing that's very different is the lights, the colors on the planet that are much stronger than that's on Earth. So he had to wear like a facial mask, like sunglasses, to filter out the lights and the colors. Otherwise, he'll be like drunken or dazzled or faint.
Blinded.
So he
But what
was
is
he
it about that
gone
lighter
for 90
cabin?
days?
For 9 days. This actually I verified with his family members. His son, who kind of stated that he was gone for 9 days.
Okay.
Samuel,
And his
with
wife,
What
his
was that,
wife,
Randy?
I was just going to say, with you saying that the reason he was able to survive there for those 9 days was because he had gone through so many reincarnations.
yeah.
Besides
80
the gravity differences and the quality of the light that he had to wear the special face covering or lenses for, what is it specifically about the number of times he's been reincarnated that made him able to deal with that better than someone else?
Well, it's just a law in which we people on Earth don't quite understand. But I kind of get the idea that we have to go through the different lifetimes in order to progress and move up the ladder. And for them, they probably have a different, the planet probably has a different kind of vibrational system in which only people who have gone through so many past lives can survive for a certain length of time on the planet. And this is something that's a little bit hard to explain because he was told that way. And then there are some things in the book that are just like this. He was told in a specific way, but we probably cannot understand the reason behind it.
So you think it's a vibrational thing, like the vibration of the soul or the spirit that would have been problematic for somebody who hasn't achieved a certain level, some sort of dissonance with the environment.
Yes, yeah, in a sense, I think that's right. Yes.
Is he a unique individual, or have the, and please forgive me if I get this wrong, Thaioubans abducted or gathered other people to give them similar experiences?
Well, he was certainly like a unique individual in a sense because he actually lived on different planets in his past lives, and he was there are a total of 9 different categories of planets in the universe, and we people on Earth are currently living on category 1 planet, the lowest category, which is similar to elementary school, like grade 1. And Michel, in one of his past lives, he lived on category 7 category planet. It's kind of like more advanced. And the Thaioubans or Jehovah's, or some people would call the Jehovah's, they actually come from category 9 planet. So when you read the Bible, you probably would have to distinguish 2 concepts. One is God, the creator, which is a pure spirit, which doesn't have a face. Most Catholic people agree that God, the creator, does not have a face because he's the creator of everything. It's a pure spirit. But the Jehovah's, as described in the Bible, the original Bible, not the new international version. The translation has a lot of issues. The original Bible described the Jehovah's, or the angels that came to Earth, are actually the extraterrestrials who were meant to lead us to the right way, the spiritual way of living. So when you read the Old Testament of the Bible, it keeps saying that do not worship idols, because when the Creator made us, the human beings on Earth, it actually inserted a tiny portion of itself to each of us. So we are actually, according to the ETs, we are actually part of the Creator, and the Creator is part of us. So there is actually no need, and it's wrong to worship idols, because you are the God, connected to the God, to the Creator directly. And it's actually very, very bad to really worship something else when you can just look inside for answers. Because the New Testament of the Bible talks about the kingdom of God is within you. So I find that to be very interesting, because according to this book, Thaioouba Prophecy, the Creator created everything, the stars, the planets, animals, plants, and human beings on Earth, as well as ETs on different planets, just to experience everything.
I find it interesting, this idea of part of God being within us. We've come across this multiple times before. If you think of the Thomas Campbell stuff, right, that, we're made up of, what is God, or, in his mind, that universal consciousness that he doesn't call God, that is a lot like God.
Yes.
But yeah, that we are, it's a piece within us. So I think that matches with a lot of different things. But I find the idea that this planet is both, has physical implications, like lighter gravity and colors, wavelength of light, as I assume tied to the sun there and the materials or whatever, but also this spiritual aspect of it that is dominant in how it works. I'm curious, you said at least 9 classifications of planets. Do they each have different vibrational frequencies? So every planet's going to have some vibrational frequency, and it's not easy to just jump between them?
Uh, that's right. We can not move up, but they can move down. Um, if we move up, we're going to die after a certain period of time. But this book is so strikingly interesting and fascinating because it explains a lot of the phenomena that we can see and observe. For example, um, I came to the US at the age of 15 and I went to church just to socialize and to get to know as many people as possible
Correct.
and to improve my English. And then when I read the Bible, I had a question and asked the pastors and the people in the church, like, why did God or them choose the Hebrews? Not the Chinese, not the Japanese, not the Koreans, not the Caucasians, not the blacks, not the Africans. Like why the Hebrews? And if we see nowadays, the Jewish people, they only account for 0.2% of world population, but 22% of the Nobel Prize winners are Jewish people. And they excel in every field that they go into, like in the scientific communities and also in arts and business and also including athletes, like in sports too. So it's statistically significant. Why is that? This book actually gives a very, very, very interesting and reasonable and plausible explanation that the people in the church did not or were not able to give. I mean, the people in the church try to explain it away and try to say, oh, they're just this and that. They're really just, I think they're just something they try to pretend that they knew, but they didn't know. But this book explains the reasons. It's very, very interesting. And because like we all came from different planets originally. We did not evolve from apes or gorillas in the very beginning. Geologists and also astronomers agree that the planet has its lifespan, has its longevity. So when the core of the planet cools down, if you can do research, and this is very interesting because when the core of a planet cools down, it will not have the electromagnetic force to capture the atmosphere. So the planet will lose its atmosphere and become like a desert. So this is what Mars is like now. So people will have to migrate from planet to planet when the planet cools down. The core of the planet cools down. So originally we all came from different planets. The blacks, the yellows, the Caucasians, the ancestors, the Polynesians, originally all came from different planets. So the Hebrews also came from a different planet of a different category. The rest of us all came from planet of category 1. So it's the same kind of level, same kind of degree or classification of planets. But the Hebrews came from a different category of planet. So this is why they actually encountered a lot of issues when they came to Earth. Because by natural law, when you move down the categories of planets, you're going to encounter a lot of persecution and resistance from the locals. So when the Hebrews came, they actually encountered a lot of jealousy from the locals in the Middle East about 12,000 years ago. So the locals wanted to rape the women of the Hebrews who came here accidentally because of a malfunction of their spacecraft, according to the book. And they wanted to rape the Hebrew women, and they, of course, had to defend themselves. So they killed the people who wanted to attack them. So historically, there were a lot of animosity and issues between the Hebrews and the locals. And we see nowadays it's the same case. So history repeats itself. So I think if you really want to know a lot of the things that happen in the world today, I think you can find a lot of the answers from this book.
So this seems obvious from what you're saying, but I just want to verify this. So the spiritual lens of this book of these ETs or whatever they were that were communicating with this gentleman is that Christianity, I'm assuming, is, in that perspective, the most accurate religion or spiritual practice on this planet as opposed to religious views from different nations, different parts of the world?
Well, it actually says religion is a curse.
Religions altogether.
Altogether. Like it doesn't matter if it's Buddhism or Christianity or Judaism. It's organized religions is a curse on Earth. But events as documented in the Bible actually occurred in the past. And the Bible is actually a historical book that documented some of the interactions of human beings on Earth with angels or the ETs. And actually explains what happened during Exodus and what happened during the times of Jesus and Christ, why they chose the Hebrews over the other races of people.
Okay, so then my question is, one, you've got all of these, we'll call them races or groups of different alien beings from different planets that wound up settling here. You said the Hebrews came here because they crashed and then were stuck. And so, they populated their area. Is that the way everybody who came here got here?
No, not for the yellows or blacks or the Caucasians, because the yellows and the blacks originally came from a planet in which the core of the planet cooled down. So they had to migrate to a planet of the same category. So the yellows, the blacks, and the Caucasians all came from category 1 planet because they had to.
Let me ask a question that is just a logical outcome of all that. In order to migrate from planet A to planet B, you have to develop the technology necessary to do so.
Yes.
So I'm assuming that all races at one time were capable of doing that.
Yes.
What caused us to lose all of that?
We had 2 great resets in the history of mankind on Earth due to natural disasters.
Okay.
On Earth, at least. One disaster occurred 1.32 million years ago when a small asteroid hit Earth and split into 3 parts. One part hit was now today's Red Sea area, and the second part hit was now today's East Timor area, and the third, the smallest part, hit the Galapagos Islands. And if you go to Galapagos Islands of Ecuador, if you ask geologists or historians, they're going to agree that it was probably due to an asteroid hitting that area, forming the islands, kind of the aftermath of the islands. So that's the first great reset that caused a lot of volcanic activities and also like floods and killing most people on Earth. So that's the first great reset on Earth.
Just massive amounts of natural disaster chaos.
Yes.
So the same type of stuff that they talk about for 12,000 years ago, all the civilizations getting messed up, the Younger Dryas
events, all that.
Yeah, I was going to say, is that the second event?
Perspective then?
The second great reset actually occurred 14,500 years ago. So if you look at the pyramid or the statues on Easter Island, those are actually the remnants of the ancient civilizations. So that actually can explain that we used to have the technologies, including anti-gravitational technologies, and also the technologies to cut the huge stones in a very precise manner. So what happened was that the second great reset occurred when an earthquake struck and then destroyed the entire continent of Lemuria in the Pacific Ocean. And then a few thousand years later, Atlantis also disappeared. So Lemuria in the Pacific Ocean, Atlantis in the Atlantic Ocean existed on Earth. And they had a very, very flourishing and successful civilization in the past. So the book is described what they were like.
So I have another
it was from
science question.
Wait. You guys were stepping on each other.
That's right. Go ahead, Randy.
I was just going to say I have another science side of the question. So in the view of the book, it says that different general races of people, whether you're African American, Asian, Caucasian, that they came from different planets originally, according to this book, and they all migrated here because their cores are cooling down. So scientifically, genetically, the only real differences between people across the planet are the amount of melanin you might have in your skin, some slight facial structure differences, things like that. Otherwise, we're pretty much identical genetically. So how would they explain all these different races supposedly coming from different planets? Were they seeded on those planets and then from the same source and then came here, or how do they account for all that?
So over time, we kind of assimilate to the local environment or the geographical environment of the planet, when we migrate. So it's kind of, we are talking about 1.3 millions of years, 1.35 millions of years. At least when the yellows and the blacks migrate here, that's because the cooling of the core of their original planet. And then the ancestors of the Polynesians came because there was an overpopulation issue on their original planet. Genetically, we are all very similar, except for the Jewish people. If you do research, if you do like a check on the peer-reviewed journals, the people, Jewish people, they have kind of like a unique or distinct genetic makeup from the rest of us. So that actually explains that they came from a different kind of planet.
I come from long ago in Europe, Ashkenazi. I have Ashkenazi Jewish blood in my family. And I spent about 6 years of my life trying very hard to become a religious Jew. Studying, learning Hebrew, doing all these things. It's very hard to become a Jew. It's not something that the Jewish faith really wants you to do. They're willing to accept you over a long period of time, but I learned so much during that period. One of the things I learned was that there is a fundamental difference between Judaica and the rest of humanity, and that is that the evolutionary genetic thrust in Judaism, in all of Judaica, is what you can do with your mind. The man who is most likely to propagate, to find the beautiful wife, to be successful in the society is the man who learns how to use his mind the best. Not the man who knows how to throw a spear the farthest, or the man who's able to lift the greatest weight or do the best fighting. That is an absolutely fundamentally different part of the Jewish world. And I suppose the book would indicate that that's, I don't know, a characteristic of a type 2 planet?
Type 3.
A type 3
Category
planet?
3, yes.
Okay, category 3 planet.
I hope everyone on Earth can learn from that, because it is true that our mind is the most important thing. This is the reason we come in physical form. We use our physical body as a tool, as a vehicle to learn spiritual lessons. And what your mind can do is something not to be underestimated. And I think this is some kind of important spiritual lesson for everyone to realize. Because if you know about the Qigong masters in China and the Taoist masters or the yogis in India, they practice their meditation is a way to, their practice of their meditation is a way to purify their mind and to focus and to really concentrate into something that they want to achieve. So this is something that I think a lot of people who have Sidis, like special powers, can achieve through the meditation and concentration of their mind. And I think Dean Radin, a parapsychologist, did an extensive study on this and explaining why people have supernatural powers and how they achieve those kind of things. He was actually ridiculed by the scientific community. But this book, Thaioouba Prophecy, explains that a lot of the things that they can do are actually done through their mind. For example, they can levitate, they can materialize objects, they can communicate through telepathy, and they can heal all the different diseases that you can think of. It's all through their mind.
You were talking about various Catholic saints who were able to levitate, appear in different locations, this kind of thing. Is this an innately human capability, or is this something that was taught to us by the Thaiobians?
Well, they're innate human abilities. It's just that we have a lot of potentials yet to be discovered and uncovered. A lot of the in the ancient past, before Christ, during the times of Moses, there were ancient mystery schools that taught about this, and people were able to perform magic, real magic. But over time, since the burning of the Library of Alexandria and also disappearance of the Atlantis, people lost the knowledge. Most people lost the knowledge, but some of the knowledge is actually learned by certain people in secret societies. And actually, I happen to be able to translate a different book, 334 per thousand lies, talking about a secret society that was originally founded in Germany, in which the members had strong psychic abilities to see the past and predict the probabilities of the future and to perform magic. And they're able to influence decisions of the business leaders and the politicians in the world, and how they do that to divide and conquer us, to divide and rule us. And the method that they used, and also the ways to counter that method, because he was a renegade master of the chairman of that secret society. He wanted to reveal everything so that, or expose everything, so that we know how to counter it.
We're talking something along the lines of the Rosicrucians, the Illuminati, there are all these names that are bandied about concerning these secret societies. Do you have a particular name to apply to this?
That secret society is not named, and he did not name any names.
Okay.
And I think it's more dangerous than the Illuminati.
Okay.
It sounds a lot. I'm just now coming on, Mr. Samuel. I'm Mike Birdsong. But it sounds a lot to me very familiar with Arianism back in the early church, which was one of the first occultic type religion that sprang from Judaism, where the mind was more control of everything, and they viewed Christ more of just a teacher than a deity, which kind of leads into what we call these days New Age. What would you say about that? Is it familiar with the New Age societies?
I think a New Age movement is certainly in the right direction to leading people into a more spiritual world awareness. And I want to expand on what we just talked about, especially the Ashkenazi Jewish people being successful and exceptional in different fields. It's because of their mind power. Because like we have to recognize and to really realize that statistically significant facts have to have their reasons behind it. And the reason that the Jewish people are so successful, and actually they live longer too, like 5 years longer on average, especially the Ashkenazi Jews. So, Victor, you're going to have a longer longevity. So it's because their mind, the practice of their mind. Because if you practice like meditation, if you focus on your mind, it actually influences your physical body as well. Because how can I explain it? When the Creator created everything, like when people ask, like, who came first, chicken or egg? Neither. It's the cosmic rays, the cosmic egg that actually started everything. So what happened was that we have chakras, and the mind influences the chakras, and the chakras influence the auras or the human energy fields, and the human energy fields influence our physical body. So in a sense, if your mindset is correct, or is to compassion, to love, you're going to positively influence your physical body as well. And then the reason that, for example, some people have more mind power than others is because for two reasons. One is genetic, and the other is through practice. With meditation, you can actually accumulate more mind power, accumulate more electrons, so that you can have Sidis or special psychic abilities or powers. But some people are born with that.
Well, can you hang on just 1 second? You used a word there that I didn't fully understand. it sounds like you were saying cities, but are you saying SIDI? Are you saying something like a power? What is that word?
Is the Sidis. Sidis is the special psychic abilities of the yogis in India.
Hello. This is Avalon Lian Dankwa Smythe. Siddhis, which is the plural form of a Sanskrit word, meaning perfection or accomplishment, are supernatural or extraordinary abilities, like telepathy, invisibility, or flying, attained through intense yogic practices, meditation, and spiritual discipline. There are 8 primary siddhis, and some would be bloody useful. Let me list them. Anima Siddhi, the ability to decrease the size of one's body and become smaller than the smallest particle. Mahima Siddhi, the ability to increase the size of one's body, ultimately enveloping the universe. Lagima Siddhi, the ability to make one's body lighter than air and fly at will. Prapta Siddhi, the ability to manifest any object one desires within one's hand. Prakamaya Siddhi, the ability to attain anything one desires. Ishita Siddhi, the ability to control the subpotencies of the laws of nature. Vashita Siddhi, the ability to bring others under one's control. Kamavasayita Siddhi, the ability to attain anything anywhere. I will be outside practicing becoming smaller than the smallest particle. Then I'll have some tea.
Okay.
Like they're able to, it's an Indian word. Like,
how do you spell it?
Siddhis.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That makes good sense now.
Yeah. To explain a little bit more specifically, I don't know, because most of you haven't read the book, but let me see, how can I do that? So we have our physical body and we also have our astral body. Mm-hmm. And our astral body is actually connected to our higher self. So we have our higher self, which is connected to the source, the creator.
The creator.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So people on Earth, most people, like, I think I can leave it here because it just goes into too many details. I think.
Okay, that's fine.
Well, let me ask this. Maybe this will help frame it up. So we've got people from multiple planets, and we've got people from multiple planets that fall within sort of a graduating scale of awareness or spirituality that affects not just the physical, but the spiritual, right? And it's impacted by the environment of that planet, the physical environment too. And so the core of our DNA and who we are physically is fairly consistent across all of these peoples, no matter where they're from. The capabilities the things that we're capable of physically is all fairly similar. What differentiates the different level of peoples and the planets they're on is their spiritual advancement, which in turn affects how they can use their physical body, but it's the spiritual body that's advancing, not the physical necessarily. Is that accurate?
That's accurate. We only use our physical body as a tool to learn spiritual lessons, and we give up our physical body after we pass, after we die. But we take away the spiritual knowledge and the lessons we learned in each of our lifetimes.
And so then, in order to live on a class 9 planet, our spiritual body has to be a certain level of evolved, but our physical body isn't necessarily the problem. Is that correct?
That's correct. We have to evolve gradually, like going through the different filters that they have to purify our mind and our experiences. Because if you're just like a beggar on the street, but if you behave like Christ, you can still jump the ladder and go to a higher category of planet. It really doesn't matter if you're the wealthiest person in the world or the poorest person on the street. It really doesn't matter. It's how you respond to the challenges that you set beforehand when you.
And so that's why he was capable of going to this, to Thaioouba, which is this higher level of planet, higher class. So he was able to go because spiritually he was a certain level of aware. But if somebody was not, it's not their body that would kill them. You said they could, if they go to the wrong planet, they could die. It's the spiritual aspect of them that's interacting with the body that would cause them to die. Is that correct? Sort of?
Yeah, sort of like that.
Sort of.
There are a lot of universal laws as explained in the book. This is one of them. And the other one, it will be karma, like cause and effect. What you did in your past life will come back to you. So it's something that's really consistent with the Eastern philosophies or religions.
So
let me
with
ask
this
you.
viewpoint, the fastest way, I'm assuming, to maybe elevate up the levels of planets or the different vibrational levels of planets would be to have a dedicated meditation practice that you're committed to all the time and do good, make sure your karma is good, do good things, follow. But meditation, I'm assuming, is probably one of the fastest, most important things you could do, from what it sounds like, to increase your mind's ability to, or your spirit's ability to go to higher levels. Would that be accurate?
Yes, follow the teachings of Christ and follow the Ten Commandments of Moses and meditate and concentrate. Follow the natural course of events, respond appropriately. And that's the best way to do it.
In this view of reality, is Christ a unique creature, fundamentally different from all other humans? Or is any human capable of being what Christ was?
Christ is actually a unique figure on Earth because he did not, I don't know how far you're in the book, but...
Well, I've only had a couple of days.
Okay. So Jesus and Christ are two different figures, two different entities, two different people. So Jesus was born on earth, but Christ was not. So Jesus could not perform miracles, but Christ could. So this is something that I want to encourage people to read the book because it's actually, there are a lot of details that make perfect sense.
Correct. Well, you said you were talking about Christ or Jesus never performing miracles until the age of 30 or 28 or something along those lines. Is that sort of the indwelling of Christ into the body of Jesus?
So what happened was that Jesus, the one who was indeed born out of Virgin Mary, went to India and died in Japan. He was born that way from a virgin. It was just to catch people's attention that someone extraordinary was going to be born this way and to fulfill the prophecies.
Correct.
But Christ, the reason that they had Christ to come to us was that people in the past, as well as people nowadays, are highly skeptical. They just wouldn't believe anything unless someone could perform miracles. So when a person's astral body goes into the embryo, it will have to pass through what the ancient Nagas would call the river of oblivion, forgetting the knowledge to perform miracles. So that's why Jesus could not perform miracles. But Christ was actually someone who came from, according to this book, Thaioouba or Jehovah, that he did not have to go through this process. So they made a physical body that resembled the appearance of Jesus, and had the spiritual body or the astral body of Christ come into that physical body and remembered everything to perform miracles, the knowledge through that, and preached about spirituality and love and reincarnation. The reason he resurrected 3 days after was just to show people that there's life after death and there's reincarnation. But the book also talks about how the Catholic Church councils, the 4 Catholic Church Council meetings, intentionally distorted the original meanings of the ancient scriptures and removed in a sense, the concept of reincarnation, which is believed by a lot of people in China and India.
Have you ever read a book by a man named Bernard Heisch, Haisch? He wrote a book. He's a what is he? He's a very serious scientist. You would have to call him a religious spiritual scientist. And he's also talking about trying to come to a religion that is scientifically defensible. And what he's talking about is, each of us having some spark of God within our being. And that he says that the purpose of us on Earth is to experience things, allowing at the same time God to experience his creation, to experience himself. I find certain similarities between the things that you're discussing and the things that Bernard Heisch was discussing.
Yes, I would like to explore that a little bit further when I get the time. And I think the reason, if you really look at history, Enoch was actually taken by Jehovah's or Thaioubans to their planet. And this is why it came about the Book of Enoch.
Apparently never to return.
But his great-grandson, Noah, was told to build an ark.
Correct.
And similarly, Michel Desmarquet was taken by the Thaioubans to their planet. And you can imagine, a few decades later, what would happen. So this is why, I think this book serves as warnings for people on Earth to really have the knowledge to wake up and to go against the tyrannies in the world. Because, the paranormals are really important for people to know, and for people to wake up to the other side of the world. They are also a force in which the book Thaioouba Prophecy talks about, that are really constraining or restraining people into liberating their spiritual development. And there's a way to really go against this force, which is to unite and to, through nonviolent resistance, just like what Gandhi did in India, and what Dr. Martin Luther King preached, just to really have this kind of inertia, a grassroots movement for people to wake up and to have a strike against the multinational corporations or the people who ran everything behind the scenes. And I can also explain other things.
Well, I have a question that sort of gets at the root of this, which is, who exactly are the Thaioubans? Because in everything you've described, they're playing this sort of curator role of God's creation, where they're interacting with these planets. They're setting up. They say religion is a curse, but they're basically, you're saying they set one up by replacing Jesus with Christ, right? Jesus goes off and lives the rest of his life. Christ is now in his place, a stand-in, and he does these things and creates this religion. So they're sort of guiding these planets in their growth. So who are they, and what's their relationship to us and to God?
Okay. So I can use analogy, just like a school system. We are just like elementary school students. They're just like college professors. They are not the creator. They are not God, but they can join and rejoin the great ether, the pure spirit. So if you read the book, you're going to see that the 7 masters on the planet Thaioouba, they have a hard time keeping their physical body. So they normally appear in a form in which they are joined with a great spirit, the source, the creator of the universe. So they are having this role of our mentor or a college professor, sometimes giving us nudges, sometimes intervene directly or indirectly to lead us to the right spiritual enlightenment. I would say if you look at the theme of or the original meaning of the word sin, it is the deviation from the goal, the deviation from the purpose. So that's when the Creator created us, it actually intentionally created in a way that gave the free will to every one of us. So we have the free will to do everything we want. And this is actually illustrated in the Old Testament of the Bible using a parable. If you are told not to eat an apple from a specific tree, but if you still do it, you are actually exercising your free will and you have to face the consequences. So I think that story is actually an analogy to the concept of free will. So this is something that I want to emphasize, is that we can really do really well and follow the Ten Commandments, but we also have the free will not to do it.
Absolutely.
So it's really up to us.
So are the Thaioubans then advanced versions of us? Like they are so close to, vibrational where they can barely keep a physical body because they've advanced to that level, or were they always like that? Were they created by God that way?
They advanced to a certain, it's kind of like a evolutionary path. We, after going through maybe 100, 200 reincarnations, we can get to category 9 or level 9 and then live on the planet Thaioouba. And they also can become like the 7 masters on the planet and rejoin the great ether. And then the great ether the pure spirit can also split and then to go through a different cycle on its own to re-experience the lives on different categories of planets. So when the creator created everything in the very beginning, it actually created a system of 9 different categories of planets. And so this is why we go through the different cycles and repeat the cycles.
Okay. All right. So it's a system of spiritual advancement that has not only spiritual impacts, but physical impacts as you advance. And it's through a system of reincarnation and learning, spiritual learning. So eventually, any one of us could reach the level of the 7 Grand Masters on Thaioouba and be part of helping the other people across the galaxy. So
Yes.
it's a spiritual growth system. Okay.
Yeah. Now, when you reach that level, you don't die at all. You don't die anymore. You keep your physical body in perfect form, forever looking like in your 30th. And if you remember the Old Testaments of the Bible, the original Hebrews lived 800, 900 years. And I find that to be fascinating because they originally came from a category 3 planet. That must have like longer lifetimes or longevity. So this is something that's really struck me of this book as well, is that everything makes perfect sense if you really think about it.
Well, I do find it interesting, and then I'll let somebody else talk because I keep asking all the questions. But I do find it interesting that there's this twofold, relationship here. You're talking a category 3 planet, so they have spiritually advanced, but obviously that planet and living at that vibration has affected them genetically, because you're saying the Hebrews had literally some different genetics because of that planet they lived on. So it's a combination of this physical and spiritual meld, whether it's the vibration or the environment around you. And when you leave the planet, you go to a lower vibration planet, then I guess over generations, you start to lose that ability. It gets watered down because you're adapting to the new planet that you're on. Is that right?
That's kind of right, but also through intermarriage. So I kind of asked a lot of my Jewish friends who married non-Jewish people, like their mental discipline kind of deteriorated when they, like their children, like if they marry like a non-Jewish person, and then their children kind of, their children's mental disciplinary ability deteriorated to a certain extent, and then not as good at their parents, their Jewish parents. So this is kind of like a sensitive area in which it's just anecdotal research that I did. I have no proof, but from the people that I talked to, that seemed to be true. So historically, like the book also talks about this, the Jewish people, they don't tend to intermarry to non-Jewish
Correct.
people. Yeah.
They tend to remain insular.
Yeah.
And so the idea there is that is to maintain a certain level of genetic consistency with where they came from, which allows them to more that those genetics allow them to more easily be at a higher vibration, correct?
Well, it's not intentionally. It's probably not intentional. This is probably more cultural, more custom towards custom. Is and the Ethiopians, interesting enough, thought that through intermarriage, the Jewish people would become like the rest of us, and to dilute their kind of specialness or exception. But it turned out that's not the case. So this is why they actually chose the Hebrews. This is why the Hebrews were the chosen people, because they didn't want to see such more spiritually evolved people being suppressed by the ancient pharaohs, preventing them to grow more spiritually. Because if you look at the history, the ancient pharaohs of Egypt, they treated the Hebrews like slaves.
Correct.
They not really give them the opportunity to grow spiritually. So this is why the ETs from Thaioouba decided to intervene and to liberate the Jewish people, the Hebrews, out of Egypt. And similarly, in the times of Jesus, when the Romans were ruling that area, or kind of ruling, the Romans believed in different gods and goddesses, confusing the people at that time, kind of like had a lot of moral decay, the Romans did. So this is why they decided to send Jesus and Christ to us and to really preach about spirituality and love and also different concepts.
So I have a couple of different questions. I'll just say them real quick and you can answer however you want. But with the concept of you saying that Christ was basically someone from Thaioouba who assumed the identity of Jesus and did the miracles, did all the things. Would that Thaioban person be one of those 7 masters, or just anyone from that level 9 planet? And then the next one would be, have there been other Thaiobians that have gone and assumed identities of people in other religions, like say Buddhism or Taoism or different things like that? And then the last question, which is slightly unrelated, but is, so these different planets, because you're saying they're on different vibrations, different levels, if I were to pull out my telescope and look at the right star, could I see the star where Thaioouba is, or is that because it's at a different vibration, almost like a different plane of existence or a different dimension, or is that something that's physically in the universe that we would be able to see? Or do we can't see it unless we're at that level?
That's a very good question.
Yes. I'll answer the third question first. Yes, we are able to see that. It's a physical planet. In our dimension, is actually you can still visit that if you if you're able to travel there. And they actually traveled far through portals, and I can explain a little bit how they traveled here and how they traveled that faster than speed of light, a little bit more.
We definitely want to come back to that, because I have a question
Yeah.
about that and what you said earlier about time. So
Yeah.
I've definitely got that on the side to come back to.
So regarding the second question, Jesus or Christ is actually the only one from Thaioouba that came to us to appear like a human being, but actually he was not a human on Earth. And other religious leaders such as the Buddha or others, they are earthlings. They are not divine. They're not like kind of from a planet outside of Earth. But the Buddha had self-realization or enlightenment through his own efforts. And if you know about the Buddha, he actually was born in a very wealthy and royal family in India. But he knew that that was not the purpose of life. He wanted to seek for his own enlightenment by going through all the different hardships and also the through meditation and things like that. So he actually was an earthling who reached the level of purified spiritual mind, that he was able to really achieve that realization, the goal of realization. And I would assume that he, just my personal opinion, when he reincarnates, he will be reincarnating on Category 9 planet. And regarding the seven masters, they are more, Christ was just one of the Thaioubans, not one of the seven masters on the planet. Because if you read into the book, you're going to see that the seven masters, they actually are so far more advanced than the Thaioubans, that they are able to achieve the things that the Thaioubans cannot achieve, the regular Thaioubans. For example, they can actually make an adult human being in one day. When you think about it, we not just have our physical body, we also have our astral bodies. Actually, we have 8 other bodies outside of our physical body. So they have to not only create a physical adult human body, but also add into the different, like astral body, psychotypical body, and also the other body into a human physical body in order to make a complete human being, in order to have this kind of ability to think on its own and to really do the things that we do. So that's the answer.
Samuel, first off, I want you to know that you're the most fascinating guest I've had in a long time. I'm deeply, deeply enjoying what you have to say. What you are saying is somewhat challenging, and it's very deep. It's obvious that you've been thinking about this for many years. I have a total of 5 days. So give me a little time to catch up. And if I ever ask anything that seems insensitive, please understand that's not the purpose. The purpose is I don't understand everything you're talking about yet. I do intend to get there. First question. You talk about the Thaioubans intervening directly on Earth for the purpose of humanity. Okay, so for instance, you were talking about initially during World War II, Heisenberg was substantially ahead of the Manhattan Project in terms of how to create a nuclear weapon. Then they had the problems with the heavy water. Then they had the problems with Heisenberg not properly estimating the amount of resources necessary. So that indicates a real concern for the outcome of humanity. Because my thought is that if the Nazis had been the first to get the weapon, we would live on a very different planet.
Yes.
Are there other planets with which the Thaioubans are equally concerned? I mean, we've got, let's say we have some estimated number, 100 billion stars in the Milky Way galaxy and 100 billion galaxies in the observed universe. That would mean some, virtually infinite number of planets with intelligent beings on there. Are the Thaioubans also concerned with them?
So in our Milky Way galaxy, there are 3 Category 9 planets.
3.
And the Thaioubans from Thaioouba is actually in charge of our area, which Earth is one of the planets that they're kind of guardianing,
okay,
kind of watching us, and sometimes giving us the kind of guides, like guides guiding us, and sometimes they're not successful in preventing a nuclear war.
For example,
so. Yes. For example, on different planets, as mentioned in the books, there are events of nuclear wars that occurred in which they gave warnings to the people multiple times, but they didn't listen. So it's their interaction of the Thaioubans and the people on different planets. If we listen to their advice, we can prevent nuclear war from happening. But if we don't listen, they respect our free will, but we have to face our consequences. So this is the message that they're telling us. They respect our free will, but sometimes we have to face the
So that's
consequences.
interesting. They will actually let a planet destroy itself.
Yes, they will.
And that's amazing to me that you guys know that one of my biggest things ever was, yeah, we got free will, but when you make a choice, there's a consequence to that choice. Either you're going to do well or you're going to do bad. But I would like to ask just a off the wall question for you, Mr. Samuel. Um, Speaking of the different levels, in my small way of thinking, speaking of the different levels of humanity, I'll put it that way, and the ascension into different uh, levels of planets. What would you say about now, going back to theology wise, where the Bible speaks of the sons of God knowing the daughters of men and having children? What would you say about those type children?
Now, when you read the Bible, I always say, like, when I go to the church, they always tell me Bible is the perfect work of God. There are no contradictions in the Bible, and you have to follow the Bible strictly to the word. And I don't believe that because I'm a translator myself, and I know there are mistranslations or interpretations that
Yes,
happen. So that no matter how good you are in translating a document, not to mention ancient Hebrew or Greek,
I agree.
yes. So we have to really get the essence, the most important lessons from the Bible, which is the Ten Commandments from Moses, and also the teachings of Christ. And when you read the four Gospels, you have to focus more on the one who really witnessed the crucifixion of Christ, which is John. So you have to really be discerned about the languages in the Bible, and to really get to the essence, and not to be dwelt on the grafted or maybe some of the other things that are not so important. And there are
Right.
things that are grafted later into the Bible for
Yeah, in my finite wisdom, that's where I say you have to eat the fish and spit out the bones.
Meaning, take that which. Well, I mean, I certainly have. My wisdom is more finite than Father Mike's.
I don't know about that.
But believe me, but I think it's interesting you bring up the Book of John, in that I read the Book of John probably once every 3 months.
Right.
And I don't read any other book of the Bible once every 3 months. There's something just about the language in it, the way that it approaches ideas, the poetry it uses, that speaks to me more than any of the other synoptic gospels. So I don't guess that really matters at all. But you brought up the Book of John, so I'm just going to support you on that.
Well, I want to talk about the Book of Enoch for a second. So you mentioned earlier that there were angels that came that we called angels, right? Which I think, did you say they were Thaioubans that came
Yes.
to help, and they were to guide humanity in its growth?
Yes.
Does that line up with the Watchers in Enoch?
Yes, they're actually the Watchers. But the Book of Enoch is also something that is actually dated earlier than the Bible. Then you should use more discernment when you read the Book of Enoch. I'm just using that as analogy to illustrate that it's kind of important of the time that we are having, that deserves that the Thaioubans taking one person to their planet for 9 days and then came back. Like it really didn't happen for a long time since Enoch, the times of Enoch, and it just signifies the importance of our time. Because if you really do the calculation, it's 40 to 80 years after Enoch was taken away by the Thaioubans that Noah was told to build an ark.
Correct.
So Michel was actually, the author was taken by the Thaioubans in 1987. And you can do the calculations.
So 2057,
so I got 2 years to build a
2067.
boat is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, you better get busy there, Dave.
I'm going to need a bigger boat.
Well, one more thing that may give us a little bit of understanding, Samuel, is you mentioned that Christ, the Anointed One, came into his, I'll use the word quote unquote deity later in life when he began his ministry after his baptism with John. However, the book of St. John, chapter 1, mentions that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. And then it says, we beheld his glory, the glory of the ever-living Father that brings this light to the lost, the least, the lonely, and even into the Gentiles. But also in the book of St. Thomas, the Infancy Gospels of Thomas, which is not a part of our canonical Bible, so to speak. But he talks about the growing up of Christ, and that even at an early age, he had power to the point that he could even curse another child and bring back to life birds that were killed. And so I'm just trying to wrap my mind around the whole idea of the different levels. I'm trying to understand or get some understanding.
Well, I think there is a reason that it's not canonized into the Bible, because there are a lot of legends, and also Christmas is actually, if you look at it, it should not be in December. It's actually a pagan practice.
Right. And
Yeah.
the early church turned it into, I mean, just as in the Old Testament, you had different feasts and celebrations and even fastings, and the early church fathers, they did the same thing with the new covenant. They took the things of the world, so to speak, and said, no, it doesn't work this way. Let's they just as many feasts that was in the Old Testament, when they were fulfilled through Christ, they created new feasts like the season of Pentecost, where in the Old Testament you had a season of burnt offerings and the Feast of Wheat and things like that. So I could understand the contrast of new feast days coming along in the early church, like Christmas, like Easter. We have different seasons. We have Advent, we have Lent, we have the Easter season, we have ordinary times that last forever. And so I am really trying hard to comprehend, if that makes sense to you.
It makes perfect sense.
But yeah, because I really want to understand what you're saying.
Okay. When I read a book, I want to find proof of everything that was said in the book.
Yes.
So I want to find out if the book talks about anything that the author could have known, could not have known, and did not know, but he wrote in the book that people at that time did not know, but nowadays we can verify. So he wrote about the tomb of Jesus in Japan back in 1989. He never traveled to Japan. And now many people like us, like probably a lot of people, still don't know about the tomb of Jesus in Japan.
It's the first time I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's the first time I've heard of it, and I'm like, wait a minute.
I had heard of it before, but not deeply.
Yeah, but if you do research, you're going to find the descriptions that you can find about the tomb of Japan, Jesus in Japan, that match the descriptions in the book, that also explained why Jesus went to India and died in Japan. Some people say that Jesus went to India, but Jesus never, no one says that Jesus performed any miracles in India.
Does it talk anything about the years?
Well, that's a good point. And your point with that is because that wasn't the Christ, that was the original Jesus.
That was the human Jesus.
Yes.
Yes. Does it talk about what was happening to the human Jesus between, say, 12 and 30? Because the Bible is pretty silent about that.
You know, that's where the Gospel of St. Thomas comes into effect.
But how can you explain the tomb of Jesus in Japan? I mean, Japanese
we know that Christ went to Egypt in the continent of Africa, but that's all that's written in the original Gospels in the Vulgate.
Well, I mean, just trivial questions or trivial thoughts. I'm
enjoying this really.
I'm enjoying it tremendously. But Jesus/Christ goes to Japan somewhere around age 35, probably. Probably took him a while to get there. I'm thinking
I think it was earlier.
It was after the resurrection.
No, that was Christ. So tell me if I'm wrong here, Samuel. You got two Jesuses. You have the Jesus that was born, and somewhere, I think in his 20s, you said in there it says fairly early.
So between between when Jesus was 30 to 33, there was another Christ who preached about spirituality in the Middle East.
But that was not the original Jesus. The original Jesus went to India and then to Japan.
Yes.
And Christ stayed and was crucified.
Yes.
And then was resurrected. But the original Jesus couldn't perform miracles because he wasn't the Christ. He's the one who went on to have a family in Japan and died, and that's what his tomb is.
At age 112.
And what about 12-year-old Jesus? Was that OG Jesus or early appearance of Christ Jesus?
That was OG.
And that's what just confuses me because my knowledge scripturally, even the old prophets speaks of Emmanuel. And even in the book of Genesis, we can see this, that Christ was fully man, yet fully God. The book of Isaiah speaks of that. The book of Ezekiel speaks about that. All the prophets. And in the book of John reinforces it, that says Jesus was one, fully God and fully man. So I'm trying to see how that can be separated.
Well, there was a debate in the early Catholic Church about the nature of Jesus or Christ.
Absolutely.
Whether he was divine or human.
And that speaks of Arianism in the beginning of the church. That's where Arianism came in, that talks about Christ being fully man and not recognizing the deity of Christ as God himself.
Because they did not know that there were two entities.
Didn't know there were two entities. Yes. Didn't St. Nicholas sort of kick Arius' butt over that?
Yeah.
Didn't they get into a fight?
So,
I think the way to understand it, Father Mike, would be that the Thaioubans that are sort of chaperoning society along saw a need, and they triggered a virgin birth to give awareness that something special was going to happen. That's the way you said it, right, Samuel? Basically. And then when the time came for them to make the changes they wanted, they swapped out Jesus's, sent one on his way. Which, by the way, was Jesus complicit in that? Was there like an agreement? Hey, we're gonna send you off. You go live your life, but we're gonna put someone else who's gonna stand in as you. Or did he go on his way and they're like, okay, now's the time to step in and bring the Christ there?
Well, he probably wasn't aware that there was another Christ who replaced him in the Middle East.
Okay. Well, no, I'm curious because that's a different story, right? There's two, it gives it a different tone.
In the Catholic Church, the person of Mary, because of her willingness to bring about the virgin birth, because of her willingness to submit to God, is given a place of special reverence in the Catholic Church. Is that same equally true with the Thaiobian approach to this, where Mary would exist in a state different from other humans?
No, nothing special about Mary, even though she did what she did. I mean, she was a very special person for sure, but not to the extent that she would be worshipped. I mean, even the Thaiobians kind of tell us not to worship anyone because the kingdom of God is within you.
It was within you.
You really should just look inside for answers. And I mean, if you look at history of Earth and also on different planets, it's always the clergy people. Sorry, Father Mike. That really cause a lot of issues to the spiritual development of the people.
Father Mike is very problematic. I understand.
Samuel, don't pay any attention to Dave. He's just mad because I'm the coolest priest he'll ever know.
That's correct.
This is true.
All right.
Yeah.
Samuel has returned, and I've got a couple of questions for him. First off, it's a very selfish question. First off, this book, the parts that I've read, it's beautifully written. I mean, this author, I don't know if he got a lot of help, but he's a very elegant author, very elegant writer. He deals with words very, very well. Much better than you would think that someone with very minimal education in Australia would do. I mean, it's a very pleasant read. So I plan on reading this book word for word very, very carefully. And that will take me a while. After I have done so, can we talk again where I can talk with you at a more cogent level?
That'd be awesome.
That'll be great.
Okay, because believe me, I will read this word for word with as much scholarly ability as I have. Second off, I just want to go back to the Thaiobians. Are they at the pinnacle of evolution of any kind of life, or is there further room for them to develop and grow?
They are actually at the pinnacle of evolution, in the sense that the next step would be just to become the seven masters on the planet Thaioba and rejoin the Great Spirit.
Okay.
Yes. And actually, to that point, I think we should learn from the masters compared to the ETs whose spacecraft crashed on Earth, which people have been focusing their attention on.
That is a really fascinating part. I mean, you're talking about there are. So you would affirm that spacecraft have crashed in the United States, like at Roswell, this sort of thing.
Yes, also in China too.
Also in China, but you've also talking about there being You've also talked about there being spacecraft that are in perfect shape, just have been given to humanity.
Well, that's debatable. That's something that I don't have any evidence. But the spacecraft of Thaiobians, they did not and will never crash on Earth. This I can be sure of because their technologies are so far more advanced than the other ETs that have come and visit us.
Well, it's always seemed strange to me that if you've got the technology to get here, that you've got the equivalent of a bad spark plug or something.
Yeah, but I mean, we have the technology to fly a plate across the Atlantic, and a wing can still fall off. You know,
Well, yeah, but there's a difference between going light years and going, from New York to London.
there is, but still, the physical universe is unpredictable.
Is that correct?
I don't
There could be
necessarily have a
space
problem with crashes. What was that, Randy?
Space geese.
Space geese.
Space geese. Exactly. Yeah, go right through that turbine. So I don't have an issue with that. I think the question I have is if China is working with the Thaioubans directly and has access to these craft that have not crashed, then what is going on there? Are the Thaioubans basically saying, okay, you guys are advanced enough, we want you to grow, or are they just, is that the new chosen,
No,
right?
No.
What's the scoop there?
So China, if you know the Chinese government, it has a very strong censorship. So the book is actually published as a science fiction in China just to get around the Chinese censorship. So the Chinese government is not involved at all in the publication or the any of the Thaioubans' activities here on Earth. They're far from it because it's an authoritarian government and regime, which is really not encouraged or criticized. It's strongly criticized by the Thaioubans in the book. And actually, it doesn't really say anything good about the American government either, because we have the we have the swing effect. So when the Democrats come into power, they remove everything that the Republicans did, and when the Republicans come into power, they remove everything the Democrats did.
Right.
It's extremely inefficient by the standards of the ETs. So this is actually something very intriguing about as written in the book. So the Chinese are far from the having any interactions with the ETs, the Thaioubans, but the Chinese public has been really kind of welcoming the book, and also millions of Chinese public has read the book.
Okay, so then are you suggesting that it is the general population in China that is having interactions with the Thaioubans, not the government?
They read a book, but they did not have any interactions with the Thaioubans. They just obtained the knowledge contained in the book. So this is why I've been trying to help the non-Chinese people to read the book.
Samuel, let me ask you something. This is a complex question. I've never been to China. My older son has been there, I guess a little more than a year over all of his trips, going over there doing engineering work, working with various Chinese engineering firms. And so we talk a lot, and he talks about the intellectual tradition in China. And the first thing he was talking to me about was the Chinese civil service exam in ancient China, and then that there's still kind of a version of this going on right now. Is the Chinese mind, and this, I don't mean this in any negative way, the Chinese version of thought more suited to assimilating the Thaioban kind of thought than the American view of things?
It depends on the subject matter. When you're talking about reincarnation, it's more accepted in China or India than the Americans. The Americans or the Europeans don't understand the reincarnation, mostly due to the clergy people, the church, the organized religions.
Yes.
And so
It's all Father Mike's fault.
Him individually, not the church.
I went out on my own and changed everybody's mind.
Yeah, but I mean, if you really think about it, only a few Chinese people won the Nobel Prize. And it's really nowhere near the Jewish people at all. And the Chinese people are really, really kind of I would say, proud of themselves, comparing themselves to the Jewish people, saying that we, the Chinese people and the Jewish people, are the smartest two ethnic groups or races of people on Earth. And far from that, I mean, if you look at the Chinese Nobel laureates, I mean, two of them, Mr. Yang and Mr. Li, they after they won the Nobel Prize, they fought against each other just because. If you know about the people in China, I mean, they are far from intellectually or spiritually evolved compared to other people. I mean, I cannot talk about this in China because they have very fragile hearts. They're very, very sensitive to this.
Right.
If I talk about this, I'm gonna be like stoned or something.
Ostracized. and I certainly don't want to put you in that position.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
not.
And on the American side, we're just stubborn.
True.
Right. I mean,
we're stubborn and we're arrogant, and we've got to admit that Americans are arrogant. I mean, we
absolutely
immediately think of ourselves as being better than anyone else in the world.
Yeah.
Well, and knowing what's right, what's wrong, knowing we know what we know, and by gosh, we're right.
That's right.
And so there's challenges in each society, right, in accepting anything similar to this.
Well, I've got a question. And I'm sorry, Mr. Samuel, I missed the very beginning of the episode due to a doctor's appointment. But in your history, is there any documentation or proof that reincarnation exists?
In the history, yes. In Chinese history and Indian history, there are a lot of documentations about reincarnation. And also in modern history, in the Western world, if you read the research done by Dr. Ian Stevenson,
right,
a Canadian researcher who studied thousands of children who remember their past lives, you can get very strong evidence of reincarnation. He also explained where the birthmarks came from. Like, it's actually due to the events that happened in past lives. You can also read the works of Dr. Raymond Moody, Dr. Michael Newton, and Dr. Brian Weiss.
Jim Tucker also.
Yeah, and they're established and well-known researchers who studied the possibilities of reincarnation. They're medical doctors.
Yeah, in my consulting career, I got to go to a lot of different universities. And one of the things I would do is seek out people there that I wanted to talk to. And it's amazing how easy it is just to find, hey, where's Dr. Ehrlich's office? Oh, he's in the Walton building, 4-3. Just go over there and knock on his door.
That's great.
And he'll answer his door. And who are you? And, I'll say, I'm somebody who's been reading your books for 25 years. Can we talk a few minutes? Okay. But I talked to Jim Tucker at the University of Virginia about this, about reincarnation, and about some of the cases he had dealt with. Very, very fascinating stuff, Father Mike. I mean, these are kids who, as soon as they get language, at age 3, they're talking to their mother about things like, I used to fly an airplane. I used to run a nuclear, they have a memory of a life that they lived. And when they take these kids back to where they say they were, they can have conversations with the people that were there and remember things. And the people that are there will say, sure seems like Uncle Jim.
Yeah,
it reminds me
no
of
way they could have known that. Right.
Right.
It reminds me of the movie Patton. When he's in where was he? I forget, but he's overlooking this great big cemetery area where a lot of bodies were buried and wars took place. And all of a sudden he's talking to his younger officer. I was here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And just started spouting out all the history that took place, and the guys was looking at him. So that was interesting. Very much
I think there's compelling arguments and studies done for reincarnation that are very interesting. There's definitely more to it than just unfounded doctrine from any Eastern religion. I mean, there's something there. We've talked about it before. The stuff out of UVA with the kid that was a pilot, right? So are there things in the prophecy that you found that didn't match up?
Well, there are a few facts that are not consistent with the conventional scientific wisdom. One fact was that the book mentions that our moon, will crash to Earth in about, I think, 200,000 years or so, or 20,000 or 20. I forgot the number, but it will crash onto Earth. But that recently has been proven by Avi Loeb, the Harvard astrophysicist, who spoke to Joe Rogan during their interview. He said that the moon will crash to Earth sooner or later. And actually, that's very consistent to what the book, Thaioouba Prophecy, talks about, in which the moon will crash to Earth. And by that time, we know how to behave civilized manner, we are able to develop technologies that will move our like the people on Earth to a different planet. And by that time, we have to migrate to a different planet.
Seems like it would be easier to just move the moon. I thought it was going to be because the moon's going to run out of fuel. Right. I mean, we know it's a space station. It's not.
That's right.
Really
right.
Just
hollow
rock.
That's
right?
That's exactly what I was about to say, Dave. I'm actually listening to a audio book right now, series that I sent you guys, and it's quite interesting. It just grasped my attention from the beginning. But it says that we're actually from a foreign race. I forget the name of what they were called, but billions of years ago, some of us went on a journey and got lost and wound up on Earth. And
just our misfortune.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you go back to science fiction, do you remember Space 1999?
Yes, I do.
Right. The moon was
the
station that was traveling through the universe.
Yeah, and this book actually mentions that. But yeah, I thought that real quickly, Dave. I'm like, wait a minute, that sounds familiar. And then Space 1999 hit me. Man, that was 50 years ago. But
what other facts were inconsistent or seemed inconsistent? Samuel?
Well, with that first fact, I was under the impression that the moon is getting further away from the planet.
Yeah, a few centimeters every year.
We're in a few 100 million years. At some point, we won't even have total solar eclipses.
Yeah, that was what I had heard.
Is that going to affect our gravity?
I think it'll slow down our rotation.
Affect our tides.
Yeah.
I think you can read the paper of Avi Loeb and to see how explain the reason that the moon will crash onto Earth. But there's a difference in terms of when that will happen. The book talks about, I think, 198,000 years or so. But Avi Loeb talks about a time in which is actually farther away from, like more in the more distant future. The other fact is that the book talks about the appendix having no use or function in the human body. That the book explains that is because nature has accidents. So accidents happen, and the appendix is an accident, and it has no use in the human body. That's actually debated in the modern scientific community, saying that it has certain functions. So this is something that's a little bit controversial or debatable. And other than that, nothing else.
Crazy question, but what about the gallbladder?
It has functions.
Yeah,
its purpose is to keep.
Mine's been taken out.
Its purpose is to keep surgeons employed.
Yeah.
But, Samuel, where do you take this from here? Do you consider yourself just kind of a sole voice in the wilderness? Do you have a group of people you work with? Is there any kind of organized effort to get these ideas out in the world?
I'm trying to get on as many podcasts as possible, and I need your help. And hopefully,
believe me, we will give the word out.
Yes, and hopefully we can form like an international movement, a movement at a grassroots level. If you look at all the revolutions in the world, that made positive changes in history, they all started at a grassroots level, not from the top down approach. And so the Christianity, I mean, when Jesus preached, when Christ preached, he started at the grassroots level too, and it became more popular than ever. So I'm taking the similar approach and hoping to receive help from as many people as possible.
Are there other? So there's no established like Thaioubian society or something right now.
Right. No.
Are there?
No society at all.
Are there other folks out there talking about it? Anyone else that's giving an additional perspective or?
They're not as vocal as myself because I'm probably the only person who learned that one thing the author knew but couldn't write in the book. That actually has a lot of kind of impact and significance in me, like motivating me to speak out about the book.
Well, that's very good for you though, because if nobody else is talking about this and it's on the down low, with you and your knowledge and wisdom of it, you could do a great thing with it.
Plus, you can know if anybody else has that knowledge.
Right.
But I cannot reveal that knowledge to anyone else because
but if they discuss it, and it was like Father Malachi Martin used to say that he was saying that. Do you know who Father Malachi Martin was?
No.
Okay, he was a Catholic priest, an exorcist, a brilliant man, and his statement is that he had heard the third secret of Fatima, which is a Catholic teaching.
It's prophecy.
Prophecy. I guess Father Mac, that would be public revelation, I presume. I mean, it wasn't just private to the girls, or to the kids. But anyway, he had always said, no, I cannot tell you what the third secret of the prophecy is. But if you were to tell me what it was, and it matched perfectly,
I could confirm or deny.
Then I could confirm or deny. Well, Samuel, what else is there anything else you'd like to discuss? Anything else you'd like to say about yourself or where you hope to take this?
I have more questions, but go cover what you want to cover, Samuel.
No.
I still have some questions.
You do your questions first. I was just noticing the 211.
Well, yeah, sorry if we drag it on. I'll ask questions later if I have to.
No, you don't have to.
All right, so
one thing real quickly, guys. Dave, I'm doing pretty good right now, but I feel it coming on.
Okay.
I may have.
You know the deal.
I just want to apologize to Samuel.
When your body gives you a limitation, you accept it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So the first question is, and I think Randy was going to ask this as well, right? I know that there are things he told you, the author told you, that you're not supposed to speak of. Can you talk a little bit about, I mean, obviously you can't speak of things you're not supposed to speak of, but talk about that interaction with him, what the purpose is, where that knowledge, is that just knowledge from his trip? Was there any follow-up knowledge he had with the Thaioubians after his trip? Stuff like that.
If you read the Bible, the New Testaments of the Bible, especially the four Gospels, it talks about the second coming of Christ. Yeah, so I'll end it there. But I also want to.
Okay.
So, but I also want to talk about ghosts.
Great.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, ghosts would be fun.
So I want to explain a little bit about how life works. So we are born into this world from the embryo. So that happens when the astral body goes into the embryo. Astral body is made of electrons. So the heart starts to beat, and the baby is born, and then go through all the different challenges in life, and then the person dies or passes. What happens is that a person leaves the physical body, and the astral body will go through what people would call a life review process, in which everything the person did will be shown to that person holographically, as in a film. So he is able to, or she is able to feel everything that happened in the lifetime of that person. And
That
as
would
well
be
as how,
that would be what we call the Great Judgment.
yes, as well as how others felt. Because one is connected to the higher self, which is connected to the source, the creator. So it's an evaluation or judgment of the creator as well as the person itself. Because the person has a self-evaluation or judgment process to determine how he or she did in the lifetime. And then what happens is that 81% of the electrons of the astral body will go to the higher self. This is why, in 3 days' time, this is why Christ resurrected after 3 days. And this is why in Tibetan culture, like the corpse of the dead are not to be touched for at least 3 days because the cycle has not been completed yet. So what about the other 19% of electrons? They will remain in nature until either they're recycled by nature or when the person reincarnates. So what people see as ghosts are actually the remaining 19% of the electrons of the astral body of the person who just passed. Because electrons have static energy or forces, they resemble the appearance of the person who just passed. And also, electrons have memories, so they remember the places they loved or hated. So this is why they frequently haunt the places they used to live. So this is the explanation given by the ETs on ghosts. So I think it makes perfect sense, because if you communicate with ghosts, they sometimes remember the things they did in their past lives or their previous life. But they're kind of like fuzzy because they only have vague memories, because they're only like a portion of the person's astral body.
Sure.
Yeah.
19%.
Yes.
So my background is as paranormal investigator. So I spent a lot of time hunting ghosts and doing measurements with EMF detectors and getting recordings, things like that. I have no problem with that aspect of it. This is part of a person that's remained behind, almost like a footprint. And the idea that electrons are involved, there's two questions around that I have. First is, if the person is reincarnated, you're saying the 19% rejoins the 81% into the new body? Or does the 19% just dissipate and it's done?
The book really doesn't give any explanation. I think whenever the book does it, it wants us to research and to find out the answers, because they don't give the answers directly to us.
Because I see situations where you have hundreds of years after an event, potentially the ghost of someone who passed there. And it seems like reincarnation would happen before that. And, you know, if that goes away after the reincarnation happens, then you wouldn't expect it to still linger around, unless there's something that keeps it there, right? The other question is really around the physics of that. So electrons by themselves, without anything connecting them, I don't know how that works. Vic and I were talking about this last night a little bit. And my concept of the spiritual being is that there is something that we don't understand through physics. Some type of particle, some type of energy, some type of matter that is what the soul is comprised of, right? That interacts with the electrons, neutrons, protons, all that of the body, right? That there's something missing in our picture of physics that holds all of that together. I could see that having electrons and interacting with electrons, putting off magnetic fields and being able to be seen or captured in some way. But I do question how you could have just electrons through nothing more than maybe what quantum mechanics and my brain. What's the term? Where the two particles interact?
Entanglement.
Entanglement,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
It seems like you would need a little bit more than that, than just to have electrons hang around and form the shadow of a person.
Is to your first question regarding the reincarnation. When a person reincarnates, it can, like, there are different options. One is to get the other 19% electrons back, or the other is to get other 19% electrons from elsewhere. So it really doesn't necessarily the case that when a person reincarnates, the 19% electrons go back to that person. So they can get electrons from elsewhere.
So you could.
So if you're particularly mischievous, you could say, I'm going to leave that other 19% behind, stir up a little trouble. That's what Father Mike would do.
Well, speaking of that, you know, it is our understanding, or I'll say mine, that the race of man was created spirit, soul, and body. All right. This physical tent is going to die. And that's what I'm understanding you're saying, the 19% or something like that. All right, but our spirit and our soul moves on. And if we're going to come back, then how do we come back in flesh and be born again?
So what happens is that it's a very good question, and thank you. What happens is that after going through the self-evaluation or judgment process, you're going to realize what kind of things you did correctly or incorrectly in your life.
Right.
For example, if you kill so many people in the world, you're going to feel the pains and sufferings of the people you killed. For example, Hitler will be extremely painful and remorseful of the things he did. And then he's going to be very likely to want to experience what it's like to be at the other side of the coin.
Right.
To
That's
suffer.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. So reincarnation and the process is just like a wheel. What goes up has to come down. And then we have to experience everything that will kind of present us as spiritual lessons to provide an environment to learn the spiritual lessons. So there's really no need to envy the super wealthy, as the Chinese people do, or look down on the poor, because really, like, you are on a wheel and you have to experience being the different roles of different lifetimes, and you have to keep learning until you purify, refine your soul, and then you move up the ladder. Eventually, you're going to reach like a planet which is just like a paradise, like heaven, like Thaioouba. And then that's the ultimate goal. But before you reach that goal, you have to go through the different processes. You have to keep refining your soul and purify your spirit in order to reach that level. Eventually, you'll go to heaven, go to a paradise, but not yet.
So that kind of goes back to what you said at the beginning, in which I really enjoyed, because that's my saying as well. Although we have a free will, there's also consequences. So what you're saying is when we die and we go before the judgment, we're going to answer those consequences, whether good or bad.
Correct. And
Okay.
that's not optional.
This
Right.
is the first time I've heard you mention the concept of heaven in the discussion. So what is the Thaiooubian perspective on that? Is that the 9th level advanced master stage, or is it something completely separate from that?
Heaven is actually a word that I used here. The book really doesn't talk about heaven, but if you look at the book, if you read the descriptions of the planet Thaioouba, you're going to imagine that planet as a paradise, as a heaven.
Paradise. I was just about to say that word. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
It's perfect. I mean, there's no crime and everything. there's no money, and everyone behaves compassionately and lovingly. And Michel actually didn't want to come back. He was taken back without his knowledge.
I'm sure.
So as we say,
this leaves a case. Oh, sorry, if I'm like, go ahead.
As we say in the church, as it was in the beginning, is now, and will be forever. So this new planet, if you will, would be the original paradise or the garden that God created for us at the beginning, but used our free will to accept, seeing, and eat of the tree of life and death, or the knowledge of good and evil.
In a sense, the tree of in which Adam ate the apple, I think that's a parable for free will. But also, the Bible, the Old Testament, tells the story of the Hebrew people.
Yeah.
So it's a mix of everything together. And I would really strongly suggest you to read through the book and get what really happened in the past, especially to the Hebrew people, and why they face so many.
Well, they were stubborn and rebellious. That's why they.
And so, as I understand it, also, Samuel, there would be the equivalent of a Thaioouba for another galaxy too. Yeah. It's not like there's only one Thaioouba.
Correct.
That is the planet of the race that is overseeing this galaxy.
One of the three planets overseeing this galaxy.
Okay.
One of the three.
So hierarchical question, organizational question, org chart. 3 Thaioouba type planets in this galaxy. Let's just say an average of 3 Thaioouba type planets in every galaxy. What's over them?
What happens is that so when Thaioubans evolve, they become like the 7 masters on the planet Thaioouba, and they can rejoin the great ether, the pure spirit. And then the book also talks about how the system in the universe works. Is that 8 or 9, normally 9 planets revolve around like a sun. Sometimes 2 suns, like binary star system. And then 9 suns revolve around a bigger sun. And 9 bigger suns revolve around an even bigger sun until the center of the universe, where everything started. The Big Bang theory is correct, in which everything started as a singularity point in which existed the pure spirit. And then it talks about how everything came about. When asked about what happened before the pure spirit, or who created pure spirit, the spirit that created everything, the Thaioubans say they don't know about that. They don't know anything about that. So there's a limit in the sense that what the Thaioubans know about. So I think the mystery goes on.
Okay.
And the Great Spirit we're talking about here is the equivalent, that's God, correct?
Yes.
Right.
So if they advance past the 7 master level, they just choose to rejoin the Spirit of God in their entirety.
Yes.
Samuel,
sorry guys, I got to drop off.
I understand.
Right. Thank you, Father Mike.
Thank you for your courage and resolve.
I apologize deeply.
Don't worry.
No apologies necessary.
You go take care of yourself.
Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow.
All right.
Thank you. So I'm assuming then that with those 7 masters, 9 masters, whichever one it was, the 7 masters, that once they've decided they've had enough of going back and forth, they fully rejoin Great Spirit, Creator, Source, whatever you want to call it, and then that makes room for, say, the next Thaioouban to become a Great Master. And you go filter up to that way. So basically that's the Great Master in this view is the last step before you just, I'm going to meld back in with deity.
You know, Samuel, as you continue your efforts here and you talk to more and more people, you're going to talk to occasionally, particularly certain types of Christians, who will find your thoughts very offensive. You might have already run into that. I don't find it that way at all. I don't find anything here blasphemous or even all that difficult to reconcile with my Catholic faith. There's a different set of ideas, but don't give up on that. don't allow their anger to dissuade you. Listen, I think probably we should kind of bring this to an end. And Samuel,
I still got to find out about these Chinese spacecraft.
Oh.
I haven't got that question answered yet. I think we were almost there. Sorry, Vic. You know me.
That's okay.
It's like a dog with a bone. Mm-hmm. So, I've listened to a couple of interviews with you, but not in their entirety. So I may have missed something. But what I heard was sort of a soundbite of the Chinese are working with functional spacecraft versus the crash stuff that the U.S. is working with for their reengineering program. And so you said the Chinese government isn't doing that. So did I misunderstand you, or can you elaborate on that a little bit?
The Chinese military retrieved crashed UAP spacecrafts. Okay. And they're probably working with reverse engineering of the technologies there. But the Chinese government is not involved with the Thaioubans of this book because they're not
not advanced in the way they should be spiritually.
Spiritually involved.
Right. Got it.
So that's the short answer. And I think the Chinese people are actually more ignorant about the fact that the military retrieved crashed UAPs. And because the Chinese government doesn't really talk about it. Most people are still at dark. They don't know anything about it. They occasionally see the strange phenomena in the sky, but they don't really have a venue or a way to research more about that.
So is somebody working with the Thaioubans where they have access to functional craft? Because I thought that's what you had said in the other interview. So
no one.
Then I misunderstood. Okay.
Right.
All right. Got it.
And can I ask, are there fallen Thaioubans, kind of like what
very good
theology in Christian theology you call a fallen angel, like they go into the demons or whatever you want to call that? And that's also what Father Mike was talking about, the sons of men looking at the daughter, or the sons of God looking at the daughters of man. So are there Thaioubans who have fallen and done the bad things and like fallen down through the levels, or is that someone else who is accounted for in that view of the universe, or is that not touched at all?
So here's where science fiction comes in. I wouldn't say that would be something that really occurred in the past, because if you look at the things that the Thaioubans did, they are far more advanced than anyone that you can think of or imagine, and they wouldn't be any one of the fallen angels that exists in the legends or science fiction stories, and I this is why I don't read science fiction at all.
Yeah, you said that. No science fiction.
So, boy, it's a shame Father Mike dropped off just at the wrong time. So I've had a demonic experience, right? I've been under demonic oppression and attack. Father Mike's an exorcist. He has exorcised demons. Father Josh here has assisted with those things.
I've run into some things that are very strange and seem demonic.
Yes, and seem demonic. Vic's had experiences, not direct attacks by them, but seen them in the hospital setting. What explains that in the Thaiouban sort of philosophy?
The book really does not talk about demons at all. And there's no hell in this book. And my personal opinion is that the concept of hell is actually invented phenomenon by the people in the church. What people talk about the demons are actually disillusioned spirits that tend to disrupt the normal activities of human beings. And in order for demons to come into the physical body, it will have to take two actions, as explained by Dr. Dean Ridden, that you have to really perceive them, and they have to initiate the coming into your physical body. But if you don't really want to receive them or perceive them, then they will not enter into your body. So this is what's actually explained. I mean, my just personal understanding about what that happened, and there are probably ways to get the demons out. But I'm not an expert in this field, so I don't know much about it. I do agree that there are evil spirits or disillusioned spirits in the world.
So where would you say where do the disillusioned spirits come from? Because I'm someone else who doesn't believe in the Christianity of hell, even though there's things that interest me in the religion, but that particular idea I don't agree with. But I do believe there are negative spirits or negative beings, whatever you want to call them, whether you want to use the D word or another word. So where does that come from to you?
So the logical explanation would be the 19% of electrons of the person who just passed, and they remain in nature, and they don't know what they are and how they came about. So they want to come into a physical body and to relive a life. And sometimes, like when you have, I don't know if I should get into this. It will take about 5 minutes to explain.
That's okay. Go ahead.
It's okay. You can take whatever time you want.
So there are different kinds of people in the world. Some people have more electrons. Some people have less electrons. If you have more base, if you have more electrons, proportionally, the 19 electrons that remain in nature after that person passes will be stronger than the others. And so this is why some spirits are stronger in power than others. Sometimes you have stronger ghosts. Sometimes you have more demonic or disillusioned spirits. And you can practice and to get more electrons. And this is a way to accumulate more psychic abilities and mental power and mental abilities. This is the reason why, especially the Ashkenazi Jewish people, they have more mental discipline, is that they have more electrons by birth. I'm talking about the ethnic Jews, not the religious by religion. So this is why they excel in different fields that they enter into. This is because they originally came from a category 3 planet. So if you really get into it, the people on category 1 planet have a higher self. And then that higher self distributes like itself to 9 different people on category 1 planet. So people on Earth, like 9 people on Earth, share one higher self. But people on category 3 planet, where the Jewish people came from, the higher self only shares with 7 different people. So one single person will have more electrons than the people on Earth. I mean, the other people on Earth. So this is why, like, certain people will have more like electrons after they pass in the sense of ghosts or spirits. So this is why sometimes you have stronger spirits than others. But if the spirits are enlightened, they're going to know to dissipate and to be recycled. But sometimes they don't. So this is why I think where the demons come from.
What about other supposed paranormal entities? Like, if you want to look at the ecosystem of the paranormal the way I do, like, there are things that were humans
zoo.
and there's things that were never humans. And or the things that people might call fae, or the people who believe that something like a Bigfoot is not an evolved animal on this planet, but might be a semi-spiritual being. Like, where do those fall in this perspective?
So nature is kind of complicated. there are interdimensional beings who can come in and get out of our universe and go into a different parallel universe. And there are different paranormal phenomena that are not explained by others. If you want to be a little bit more specific on which specific paranormal event, that I can maybe elaborate a little bit more.
Well, I mean, I don't really have it because I don't think we specifically know what everything is. So I don't really have a specific. I'm just saying in general, there seems to be other things going on besides just humans and passed on humans. And
yes, there
in different cultures, we might call it different things. And there might be multiples of those different things. But I'm not someone who thinks I can specifically say this is this or that is that. I just mean in general, like, so basically there are other things that are not human that are running around the paranormal world that have nothing to do with this human and us ascending to this 9th level planet in this view. So there is something else going on.
Yes, there are a lot of things that are unknown to us.
Randy, the term I use for that is the paranormal zoo. And that's really kind of what I think about it as, there's a zoo and there are different creatures in the zoo.
Yeah, it's an ecosystem for me, the ecosystem of the paranormal.
Right, but
or ecology of the paranormal.
You've mentioned interdimensional a couple of times, and that was, I think, my remaining question, Vic. I think that's the last one on my list of things I wanted to ask. You mentioned time changing. Well, you said specifically that it stops when you travel outside the dimension.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But I'm assuming that it doesn't stop completely. On the other side of the dimension, you're just in a time that flows differently? Or are you saying that there is no time once you step out of our dimension?
What I meant was that when you enter into the parallel universe in which the planes, ships, or people got stuck into, time stops, and you wouldn't feel any hunger, pain, or thirst. So it's a very strange concept, but it's actually corroborated by David Paulides in his Missing 411 books, because a lot of his cases kind of verify and validate the concept of feeling no pain in a parallel universe, because a lot of corpses that he found or he documented, the people walked to their bones, so as if they didn't feel any pain at all or any temperature. So also there's a kind of distortion of time when the people came out. So this is a very strange concept in which I think if scientists want to measure it, they can really find out the measurable anomalies in the clusters where people frequently disappear. For example, in the ranch,
Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah.
Right.
Dave, I have got to take these dogs out. I'm going to hand it over to you. If I don't come back, then you guys can do a great job of closing it out. Sorry about that. Vic. Okay, bye.
So when we're talking about like Bigfoot stepping into an alternate universe through a portal and then coming back and not being here all the time, which I think is where we first started with the possibility of dimensions in the discussion. So Bigfoot is going to a dimension where they experience causation. There's a flow of events, but it is outside of our timeline. So they could come back 3 weeks later and it would be a second later in our timeline because time is different there. And while they're there, there's potentially the idea that sensory is not the same.
Yeah, the time in a parallel universe stops, which means if they decide to come back, it may be like 5 or 10 years later, our time. Mm-hmm. So they can come in and get out at any time. So did the UFOs do that too. So if so the UFOs, the UAPs, they use the parallel universe as a portal as a way to hide themselves. So what they do is that they, from their planet, they enter into a close, in a space that's a close proximity of Earth, and then they enter into the parallel universe to hide themselves, so that people on Earth wouldn't be paranoid at their presence. And then they come out of the parallel universe. So this is why we often observe the UFOs appear at a certain location in space. So this is what happens. So they use the parallel universe to hide themselves and sometimes to station their spacecraft.
But that's not how.
But they don't
traveling.
have to, because
They don't have to.
what
You're
was
also
that, Randy?
saying they're not traveling by going to that parallel dimension. They're just hiding there. So they're using another means to actually travel, like say going up to a different, like say the fourth or fifth dimension to travel, but using parallel to hide. Are those different concepts the way you're looking at it?
Those are different concepts.
Yeah.
They just use parallel universe to hide. And I can explain a little bit how they travel here. So what happens is that they have the technology to travel faster than the speed of light, but that's not fast enough for them to get here. Only a few times faster. So what they do is that they first use that technology to travel into deep space. So once they're in deep space, they use a technology called transubstantiation to vibrate themselves into the speed of light. So basically, they would become like atoms or electrons, and they disappear. And then they use a separate force to teleport themselves to another location in deep space. And then they restore themselves into physical form. And then they again travel at a few times faster than speed of light to their destination. So they have to teleport themselves in deep space, because if they don't, they would explode. So this is the explanation given to the author, Michel Desmarquet.
Yeah, that actually makes sense to me. We've talked once or twice before about wormholes, warp drive, things like that, and the idea that the amount of energy that could be released or generated in order to create that kind of travel could be damaging to things around the craft that's doing it. So you wouldn't want to like jump to warp right beside the moon because there could be real problems for those who were left behind, right? And so the idea of going to deep space to initiate faster than light travel and then end it makes some sense to me.
I think there's something similar to that in the Three Body Problem books. Not necessarily, I don't remember if they talk about going faster than the light, but they at least have to get away from the planet before they do some of that stuff.
Right, probably. Yeah. Well, that had something to do with gravity, didn't it? Affecting. Oh shoot! It's been a while since I've watched that. I never read the books, although I've heard they're really good.
They are good. I read the three of them. They're good.
Yeah. Well, Samuel, this has been fascinating, and I appreciate you being patient with all my questions. Did you have anything else, Randy?
I think I'm okay for now. I guess cool. I got to read the book so I can ask better questions.
Yeah, I know Vic's going to read it. I'll take a stab at it. I don't read much anymore. It's hard for me to conconcentrate sometimes.
Is it also in audiobook form, Audible?
I think he's reading it. I think he got a digital copy somewhere, but I'm not certain. So he's going to read it, and I imagine he'll have you back and do an episode on Trailer Trash Terrors, which is his personal podcast. We hop on it sometimes, but it's less random. It's more structured in the flow when he does his podcast. But no, this has been a lot of fun. It's been great, and love to have you on again. And how do you want people to follow, interact with you? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
By email or on Facebook. Just search my name and they can find my contact information.
On Facebook? Okay.
Yeah, on Facebook.
And the same thing. Do you want to give your email, or do you have a website or anything like that?
Yes, I have a website and I can send it to you afterwards.
Perfect. We will put it in the show notes, and Vic, when he does the outro, will lay it out.
Great.
Thank you so much for your time, Samuel.
Thanks a bunch, Samuel. It's been a great conversation. You take care, and best of luck to you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Well, how's that for a rundown like no other at all? You can find Samuel Chong on the internet. It's a trivial matter to find Samuel Chong on the internet at www.chinasona.org/speakers. The Paranormal Rundown is a production of the Gang of Nerds Media. Any music you heard came from Lobo Loco, Smart Sound, or was simply in the public domain. Any media clips heard were used under the protection of the Fair Use Doctrine. Keep your ears and your eyes open for Paranormal Rundown rabbit holes. Plus, our presence on X, which will be quite frequent very soon. In the meantime, why don't you write to the lads and tell them how much you love the show, or how much you hate the show, how much you love them, or how much you hate them. It's up to you. But anyway, write to them. Quick, post-haste, at feedback@paranormalrundown.com. This is the host with the most, Cedric Dankworth Smythe, signing off until the Paranormal Rundown returns in exactly 2 weeks. Bye-bye.